It was one of those records that's been there for so long. You think actually it's just above me, and to actually to complete it was just fantastic, and it's going to be a memory that's going to last forever in that day. It was brilliant. It was something that I always thought about, in but maybe not. It's just, as I say, it was one of those things. I haven't got the ability or the talent quite to reach that lofty goal. But I guess it wasn't until last December when I broke the winter Bob Graham record on the 1st of December and ran it in a sub 16 hour time, that I started to believe that I could potentially try this record, that I was actually fast enough. And then I guess opportunities came along. I decided actually this year that I was going to target the other 2 rounds, the Paddy Buckley in Wales and the Ramsey round in Scotland. But with COVID and lockdown means they became out of the question. Mm-hmm. But luckily I live on the side of a fell, right at the bottom. So even during lockdown, I could run from my door and train. So it was like having a training camp. So slowly I started back from a low training block and started to rebuild towards getting myself peaked for later in the summer. I was actually thinking maybe if I can then peak towards UTMB, which I had an entry, that would be good. So I started right back down there. And then when that was cancelled, it was like, okay, where do I reevaluate my goals? I still had Paddy Buckley in my mind, but then it was just not opening. So about 4 or 5 weeks ago, a friend of mine who had been trying decided that it wasn't going to be for him this time. So it kind of opened the door up for me to give it an attempt. So I thought, right, I've got this fitness, I'm moving really well. I went and ran the first part of it to see if I could run it quick enough and within the schedule. And that was like, yes, I can do this. Okay, let's set a date, organise paces, organise a team, and try and make it happen. And luckily, it did happen.
Obviously, I know it's an incredible feat in itself and all very challenging, but were there any kind of real standout, really tough points? Or did it all pretty much go as you hoped it would?
No, clearly the early parts of the round were really, really good and smooth, and I was moving well, as you would expect with someone that's tapered and fresh and really focused on this goal. You've got to be moving well, you've got to be feeling good. But then there becomes a point when I think it was the key point that I've picked up is when I dropped into Wasdale, but about 14 hours in, I think it was roughly, that I suddenly started to get the energy lows and the stomach crises that you get in ultra running. And suddenly you're faced with this big wall of mountain that's really steep. Anyone that's done the Bob Graham round or trying to do the Bob Graham round, it's a common place because you're almost down at 100 meters and then you've suddenly got to go up to 650 meters quite quickly. So you're just climbing up there, you're feeling tired, you've got 14 hours in your legs, your stomach's going, and you still got to, all this time, 10 hours of running left in you. And so you've got to try and find, that was a particular low point. And then the other standout point, I mean, I came through that and then got moving again and was able to add the extra summit in with the time up I'd built in. And then it came to the last leg. It was about 11 p.m. And by that point, I was really, really tired and fatigued. It was dark. I was struggling to climb the hills quick enough to keep on to the school. And I was starting to lose a little bit of buffer. And then stress levels started to rise a bit on, I think it was about the 5th top crag hill. And because the mists came in and we could see about a metre in front of us with our head torches. And so you're trying to run, not being able to see much of the ground in front of you, and trying to navigate, because every second was quite vital, getting the right lines. And if we got it wrong, we've gone down into the wrong valley or onto the wrong mountaintop, you could quite easily lose 5-10 minutes, and that's the record gone. So all I had to do, though, was try and focus on following the people in front and keep moving and keep pushing. So that was and it wasn't until the last summit that I felt, yes, this is going to happen today, which was fantastic to get to that point and go, the feelings of joy start to flood in then. Which is brilliant.
Do you mind just talking me through the how much of a mental challenge it is? Obviously, we can see what a physical challenge it was, but just how it affects you mentally, and how, like, do you work on any kind of techniques for keeping your mentality in the right place as well?
Yeah, I guess I use quite a bit of visualization before the event. I'm constantly going through the route and the vision in my head and what it looks like, and then I try and pick out what I know is likely to be the hard points, so that I can plan those into my consciousness, that I know this is going to be hard. How can I work through this, so that you're prepped for it? So like you going U-Bar, I knew that was likely to be a hard point, but I knew if I could just get food down, keep moving, keep pushing, I would get to the top, and you then carry on and pick up and go through. So being mentally prepared for the lows whenever they hit can really help. Also trying to chunk it down into small parts. So just try and focus on each leg, and then each top, and then each little section, and just focusing on doing that bit the best you can in the moment. I guess the other thing I try and do is accept mistakes, and then go, okay, that's happened, move on. What do I need to do now to make it work on the day? And then the other one really at the end was a lot of self-talk and using positive words to reinforce the actions that I wanted to happen. So every time I would start to slow down, and the stomach and the brain is screaming at you to stop and go easy and give us a break, I was having to use, I think my key word at the time was, I'm strong, you can do this, just to try and up the pace again and move at that thing. And so the more I was suffering, the more I had to do that. And initially that was internal, and then I was externalizing it and getting my pacers and supporters to help with that motivation. I guess that's a few things that I was trying to use.
How about the camaraderie in ultra run? I know that you were supporting Sabrina earlier in the week before your own challenge. Yeah. So just what's like the team spirit and the camaraderie like within the sport?
Well, I guess the part of the spirit is to help others achieve their dreams, their ambitions, and be supportive. Because that usually comes back to you as well. It's really good to see other people achieve their dreams and push themselves. And if you can be a small part of that, it's brilliant. Because we all know what it's like to challenge yourselves and push yourselves. And that's kind of what it is. It's about trying to get the best out of yourself, and wherever that may be. And for some challenges, you need that support. It just helps with the motivation, the positivity, the sharing the journey. It's great. I know I couldn't have done this without the help of my support team on each of the legs coming out, to help carry food, drink, keep me in the right direction, even in the middle of the night with 1 meter viz, and to provide a bit of humour to lighten the mood and all sorts. It's great, and I was really glad so I could get out on Monday to help Sabrina start her journey. That's just incredible feats of tenacity and endurance to keep going and going for day after day, with very, very little sleep. Suitably very impressive.
If people have, during this time explored more of their local area, and they're now thinking, they've been taking the time in lockdown to go on really long runs or walks, and they're like, oh, I think I might like to give ultra running a go. What would your kind of top tips and beginners advice be to people?
That I guess it's you don't need to race it to start with. First thing is build up that experience of being able to cover the distance, and then once you know you can cover the distance, and that ultra running is within that comfort zone, you can then start to go, okay, how can I race it a little bit better? Sometimes the mistake is that you feel that you've got to race an ultra at 10k pace and suddenly wonder why you can't get past 10 miles without it feeling like really hard. And like you think, but you just got to think, okay, this is going to take a long time, but that's okay. And then the other thing is that it's really about an eating contest. You've got to fuel the time out. The amount of calories you burn needs to be replaced. Otherwise, you do get slower and slower. So keep eating and practice that as well. Forgetfulness, I would say, is a really useful skill. That you need to be able to forget what the pain and the suffering that it is tied into it. That it is hard. That it is takes a lot to complete an ultra, both physically and mentally. But those aches and pains need to be able to, they disappear, and all you're left with is that feeling of pride, happiness, the smile that you get from a big achievement. So that's a really good skill. I guess a little bit of tenacity, just to keep going and going and going, no matter what. And a little bit of problem solving, being able to work out what's happening and solve it early, so that you can keep going. Quite often, if you let several problems mount up, it end up with being an unsurmountable problem, and you end up dropping out and not being able to get through. So actually, a little bit of problem solving can really help.